now. Welcome back.
Fantastic.
And Claudia and Arno, it's great to have you with us, and we're looking forward to the rest of your presentation. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm sitting. My screen, not my screen. My background has changed because we're sitting in a situation of load shedding, and a lot of preparation has gone into to ensure that we're still online and have sound and battery power and things like that, but the overhead light is not there, so you just have to do with my face and not the surroundings. Right, so I just want to in the beginning I said to you that including the resource state, apart from the chunking down and up and eliciting the waypoint, and then deepening into a resource state, we have at least 12 advantages. And I just want to point out which ones we have already covered. So one, it is a great trance deepening motivator. If you remember, we said if the client doesn't know where we're actually heading with the trance deepening, they might be resistant or reluctant or fearful. And when we quantify it from in advance and saying, this is our next pit stop, we're going to stop at a place that only exists to please you, then there's usually nothing that's holding them back. It's training the client perception. In other words, they allow themselves to see things in a different light. They're not stuck necessarily in their problem state, because as we know, nothing can be solved from a problem state. The whole resource state is rapport building, because all these misconceptions and the fears that the client may have of visiting a hypnotherapist, none of this is actually even touched on. They're made to feel good, they feel safe. The next thing is that we train the client to have abstract experiences. And the example for that is to make that peak positive experience tangible by giving it a color and finding where it resides in the body. And that's an abstract experience. And that is important because, I repeat myself, it explains to us that the client has indeed bypassed the critical faculty, at least to a degree. Also, if we were to do super deep work with our client and we never practice them verbalizing in trance, that could be problematic, because speaking and taking our thoughts or our emotions and putting them into words, it usually involves a little bit of a conscious process. So the first time the client verbalizes it, it may lighten the trance. So having a verbalization happening for the first time in the resource state, where we still have deepness ahead and our main work is still to come, is the best way to practice this verbalization. I'm sure you all know that some clients go so deep, they don't even know that they can talk in trance. So it's a good practice area. We also discussed that it shows the client that we respect the privacy. And Arno pointed out that we are training regression or progression later, but we're training regression so that when it comes to the real regression, the process as such is an old hat for the client. They understand how that works. We don't have to do that preparation work and get them over the stumbling of how do I follow an emotion into the past. It can be a convincer. The whole resource state, when the client embraces the feel-good feelings and has the feel-good feelings and can make them tangible, it's a beautiful convincer for both the practitioner and the client. And it also, that's what we left off with, it is a really good place to create an anchoring, a supporting, safe place. And then there's a few of the advantages left, which is the next one that we're going to talk about now. It is the perfect place to set up ideomotor signaling, which we're going to do right now. And I suggest that you do it in a first session, even though you might not necessarily need ideomotor signaling. But number one, when it comes to the point where you absolutely need ideomotor signaling, the client knows the process. So I would definitely suggest that you do set up ideomotor signaling. I don't think I have to guide you through the process of how to do it. We simply say things like, I would like to show you a way to set up a direct communication with your subconscious mind. So when I ask you a question and your subconscious mind would like to give me yes, please choose a finger or a thumb to indicate a yes, and you can twitch that finger now so that we know. Important is to repeat what you have noticed, because when the reaction, as we hoped, comes directly from the subconscious mind, the client may be unaware that they actually have moved the finger. So I think it's polite, and it also gives us the time to write it down. It creates clarity in our mind to always repeat this. So we do it for yes, we do it for I don't know yet. We love putting that 3-syllable word afterwards. I don't know yet. What does it imply? It implies that I might not have the answer at this moment, but I might get the answer later. So I think that is something you might want to include if you don't do this already. And then the third option is, I don't want to tell. And for I don't know yet, or I don't want to tell, this would be one finger, because you're not getting an answer for that. It's also important to include thumbs, because thumbs are not fingers. And if you only have one hand available, it's difficult to choose 3 fingers on the same hand. So that's why if you include the thumbs with that, that's helpful. And then once we've got the ideomotor signaling set up, we can go straight into the trance depth assessment. And we like to use the Roy Hunter scale. There are others, but I find that the Roy Hunter technique is possibly the best self-assessment we can offer our client. And do we have to go through this, or is everybody familiar with this? Now, I don't know whether that is a yes or maybe or no.
I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with it.
Okay, then I do it very briefly. Maybe it's just a reminder. But Roy Hunter's assessment goes, you ask the client, I would like you to imagine a measuring stick that is measuring your relaxation or your trance, whatever word you prefer. And it's on the top is the number 100, and at the bottom is the number 0, and in the middle is 50. Now you have to quantify what 100 and 0 means. 100 means, you have to explain this to the client, that you are just sitting or lying here with your eyes closed, because that's the truism, because they probably lie or sit with their eyes closed. And 0 means that you're at the deepest possible trance or relaxation, without falling asleep, and 50 being the halfway mark. So you quantify that trance depth measure, and then you ask your client whether they're perceived to be at the level of 50, and you will then respond to whatever the fingers give you, the ideomotor signaling. You're obviously hoping for a yes. If you don't get a yes, you just have to do another deepener. What we're aiming for is, especially when we're new to this, or when we can't calibrate the client properly, you get that sometimes, it's always easier to lighten trance. So I always aim for the deepest trance possible. If a client is so deep that they become unresponsive, you simply ask them to lighten the trance to a point where they can verbalize. So we're looking at 25 or thereabouts. Personally, I think if we've done our work right and we've done this deepener, and especially using the technique that we have outlined here, you don't actually need to start with 50. That's almost an insult to your own work, because you have done so well deepening the client that you can at least start with 40 or even 35. So it isn't that much of a long way for the client. You don't have to keep on asking, are you 50 or deeper? Are you 40 or deeper? Are you 30 or deeper? And then also not be too precise, like saying, and when you come to the number 25 or thereabouts, please let the appropriate finger let me know where you are. And then you can assess the trance depth in that way. If the client doesn't go beyond, let's say, 40 or whatever, let's remember, first of all, it is a self-assessment. And secondly, this is the first session. So we're probably opting for a symptomatic session. And so we don't need super deep trance for this. The trance is trainable. So if the first session is like this, make a note of it, observe how the clients trains the trance, or you train the client's trance towards the second session. Which gives you an idea, can I do techniques that require really deep trance in the second session when you do another trance depth assessment? So that's kind of that in a nutshell. Is there anything that we need to discuss about the ideomotor signaling or trance depth assessment? Or is that all clear? I would say it is. Huh? And then comes a point, I don't know how many of you include in your sessions, but we believe it is not only polite, but it is, you could see it in all sorts of ways. We call that section subconscious permission and support. And I'm going to guide you through this. So you've got the trance depth assessment, and you can say to the client, and now being so deeply connected in this pleasing state where there are so many benefits and you can access valuable information, just ask your subconscious mind. You can substitute subconscious mind for higher power or inner wisdom if you think that's a better term for your client, whether this is the right place and time to work on what you came here for. When you get a yes on this, which 99.9% is the case, when you get a yes on this, it is a lovely confirmation for both of you, for the client and for you, that everything is set up perfectly to go ahead to solve this issue. So you ask the client, and when you sense whether it is a yes or no, let the appropriate finger respond. And then we take it a step further. We say, and now that you know that you have permission, please ask your subconscious whether you are supported to find the solution that you are looking for. And if you get one yes, I can promise you get another yes. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for the client to know that they have support. You may ask, who is the support? What is the support? Well, your guess is as good as mine. It could be a higher self or an inner wisdom, or just the knowledge of the subconscious. But the fact that the client has heard and it's verified, not only that this is the right place, that they have permission, that they have support, brings a great relief and fuels the hopefulness to a positive outcome. And it's a nice idea to kind of use this yes for the subconscious support by, for example, saying, isn't it good to know that you are supported from deep within, that you are not alone? Because something has answered in them, and we can translate that in a way for them to feel that they are not alone in overcoming their issue. And I find that you can even sometimes see the clients, how they're visibly start relaxing more, because sometimes our issues are really burdens, and sometimes we feel we're the only person in the whole world suffering like this and not able to overcome this. But this inner support is something that you can then later, you can use it throughout the session to remind them. You can even include it into a post-hypnotic suggestion that they have an inner team supporting them, and they're aware of this team now from now on. So this is what we call subconscious permission and support. In the very rare occasion that you don't get either permission or support, well, then that basically becomes the body of the session. It would be the right thing to explore that. And sometimes it's very quickly overcome by simply creating an inner communication within the client and saying, well, what would need to be done for you to get permission and support? And they come up with their own answers. And if there wouldn't, well, then it shouldn't deter you from continuing, but it also is a warning sign that there is some inner resistance, something blocking them, and that kind of puts your efforts into perspective. So you probably can't expect whatever you do in the body of the session to yield the same results as if there would have permission and support. I don't know whether you guys do this in your sessions, but we find that this is a very valuable add-on.
Nice.
Yeah. Any questions with that? No. Good. Fantastic. So then Arno is going to talk a little bit about
Just one question, Claudia. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes. I like him.
Open your microphone, Kim.
Okay. So then when we ask if you're supported in your desire for change, what if they interpret that? What if they're not feeling supported by somebody in their family and they interpret it differently than you mean it? Does that come up?
No, it has never, because of the way you word it. Yeah, you point out that they are now so deeply connected to their inner wisdom or their subconscious, and this is where the question is directed. So you can either say, ask your subconscious mind. We're not asking a family member. We're asking the subconscious mind.
So you clarify that.
Well, the way the wording we have given it to you, that clarifies it automatically. And I think this is something that would need to be addressed in the pre-talk if there is a family member or somebody that is not supportive of that. But it is a good point. It is a good point. It takes us a little bit off topic, but I just want to say this because it comes up and it's really valuable. When you ask your clients in the pre-talk, how long have you had this problem? It happens that some people say, I can't remember. It seems to be forever. Do you remember? Have you ever had a client like that? Now, as sad as this sounds, it tells us something. And it tells us that the client actually doesn't know who they will be when they have changed. They also don't know how the world will react to them if they or when they are changed. So we have a remedy for that, to which we come a little bit later, but we shouldn't overlook that, because there is a completely different set of fear. Because if I'm now, for example, a people's pleaser, and now I embrace my self-worth, and I make boundaries, and I speak out, I become more assertive, those people that liked me when I was pleasing them, they're not going to be very pleased with me standing in my power. So my relationships may change. And we all know that from our personal growth, how some people fall away and others come in. But it might be an added aspect that the client needs to explore, preferably in trance, how beneficial it can be. It should be explored, because it's subconscious preempting. We're going to come there a little later. How important it is to see the benefits of this change, especially when I have no clue how I will be when I overcome what I want to overcome. Okay? Sure. It's very different to have an audience on the screen than to have people in a room. It's very different. It's so beautiful. I love having a live audience, because I can gauge the energy, and I know when to put more enthusiasm in things in my wording or whatever. But having these little, and not even all of them, I only see like 12. It's not that easy. Okay, Arno, you're going to talk a little bit about the various options we have now that the client is super prepared. The garden soil is very ready to receive the seedlings, and you were going to guide us through what options there are for the body of the session.
Yes. Okay. So now we are there where we are actually going to do the work. So everything up to here has just been preparation, preparing the client to be receptive to these changes. And I just want to reiterate, when you get subconscious permission and support, this makes a huge difference to the result. You know, if you don't know, and you might not have subconscious permission and support, and you go and now you start doing a body of the session, you start doing suggestions and metaphors and whatever else you do, and they're not supported, and the subconscious doesn't possibly maybe want to allow it, you're actually just wasting time, right? But if you know you have that, man, that takes it to another level. You can almost feel it, you know, the results skyrocket. Okay. So let's go on. And I just want to, you know, with this, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I think, you know, there's so many different people here with different, probably different background, different training, different areas they specialize in. So I'm just going to mention a few things that you could possibly do in the body of the session, but I'm sure you're well equipped. You know, you could do scripting. You know, whatever that is for you. Maybe you have a collection of scripts. We have something called resource strategies, which are scriptings that we've developed specifically to work with the resource state. You know, maybe the IMDHO will invite us back and we can share those with you at some stage, right? You know, metaphors, if you like metaphors, I love metaphor. Possibly doing some parts therapy for inner conflict resolution from Roy Hunter. You know, you could use a compulsive behavior technique, stop smoking, you know, binge eating, whatever else you're going after. Even analytical and regression hypnotherapy is what could go in the body of the session. You know, so there are lots and lots of different options. Past life regression, soul journey, do spiritual work over here, or anything else, you know, that would be your core change work. What's important to know is that this is where this fits in the overall session structure. So if you look at that first page again, you can now see time-wise, that's the biggest block. You know, can you see that the first part we did up to now, the resource state itself, is actually quite short, right? And that the body of the session is where most of the time goes in, right?
Cool. I stop sharing this now.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudia.
Hmm.
Okay. Claudia, anything else that you want to add to the body
Yeah,
of the session?
look, as I think we mentioned it a few times, I think the first session is probably always a symptomatic approach, and there's nothing wrong with it. Symptomatic approaches are wonderful, and they can yield complete resolution of what the problem is, especially when it is combined with the client being as resourceful as we allowed the client to become. In fact, let's just add this here right now, Arno. This is so powerful that I had numerous clients that were so empowered and started thinking about the issue in different ways, develop new perspectives. Plus, remember, they have an anchor with a post-hypnotic suggestion, and you delivered something in the post-hypnotic suggestion, that I have it regularly happening, that although I book a second session in advance, that the client says to me, I don't need a second session, I solved my problem. And I really believe that it is the combination of the resource state with whatever you deliver in the body of the session. But to make the client resourceful to start with, to ensure the deservability, the worthiness, and the possibility that it can be achieved, the combination of that is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. It's feeling worthy, feeling deserving of actually
Yeah.
making the change. I would say that's
Yeah, but-
probably the biggest problem, is that if they don't feel good enough, they don't allow the change to happen.
Yeah, and this is why we often use scripts that are ego strengthening or working with self-worth, or these are very often the first choice of scripts for the first session. So the client really walks away empowered. And remember, you got the waypoint. We're going to come to that in a moment again. You got the waypoint. So they're more than likely to achieve their waypoint, which is a step towards the goal. So instead of aiming to do everything in one go, we making sure that we're going to get to the goal by doing it in increments. How I explain it to the students sometimes visual stories help. So I said, you have this incredible sculptor, and he has this block of granite or marble, and he doesn't take the chisel and the hammer and gives it one hit, and all the bits and pieces of marble or granite are falling off, and there's this fantastic kind of statue. Sometimes we need to chisel a little bit here, we need to chisel a little bit here before we can see the final results. Yeah. Okay, so Arno, you're going to talk us through partial and full future integration.
Yes, yes. Okay, so now that you've done with the body of the session, you're almost coming to the end of it, right? So, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, last part. And now the first thing I need to say about this is, you know, change is often scary, even positive change. And I don't know, has this ever happened to you? You got this holiday planned, you're going overseas, you're going somewhere, and maybe your flight is later today or tomorrow, but you feel those little bit of butterflies and maybe a little bit of uncertainty. You know, it's good, it's a holiday, everything's great, but there's a little bit of fear underneath all of that, you know, a little bit of, you know, Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah. So that's that inner child, that subconscious mind that, it's different. And Claudia was saying earlier, here's somebody, they don't know who they'll be without this problem. Right. Now you take that problem away. Do you think that fear of change could actually cause them to hold on to that problem, even if they have an opportunity to actually release it? So this is why we need to make sure that they are already starting to form those new neural pathways, experiencing or having experienced the change in increments already. Okay, and that's the intent of the partial and full future integration. It's actually a progression, which means it's in essence just taking them into the future. Right, so if you look at there on page 8, partial and full future integration, say to the client, from here where you are now, in this place of resourcefulness, and I don't know what the last one, let's just call it blissful. And blissful feeling, go ahead and look at that you, and maybe you dramatize it with your tonality, and build it up so that they can really associate. That has started to integrate the knowledge and learnings from the session. Notice that you in front of you. Look at that you. Now step right into that you. Feel those feelings, think those thoughts. How do you feel? Right. You keep quiet, you give your client a moment to fully associate into that experience. And you write it down. It's a very, very important, it's almost a summary of the emotions and the feelings. Like, when you make soup, you keep chucking in stuff till you have soup. Now imagine you're making a soup with all of these positive emotions being mixed in. So eventually you end up with this mixture, and this is the end result of that, of all of these positive emotions. So how's our client feeling? Let's say they're feeling empowered. We're using empowered again. And then from where you are now, so now we're going to do the next increment. Very important, if you make this one step, one increment from 0 to hero, it could be too big a change for that subconscious mind. Remember, those big changes are scary, so we make it incremental changes. Okay, so now we do another increment. From where you are, there's another you in front of you. This you is fully understanding all possibilities and have begun to adjust life very beneficially. Old ways are virtually forgotten. Look at that you. Look at that posture. Look at that aura. Step right into that you. Feel those feelings, think those thoughts. How do you feel? Okay. Let's say the client says strong. Okay, now you've got those two responses. Very important to write them down. Okay. Let the client dwell in the experience for a while. This greatly assists the process. These are strong signals promoting the ability of neurons to shift their connections and responsibilities in the brain. Okay. Now, this next part where it says beyond the goal, it says optional, but this is beautiful because it almost flushes out or expands on the partial and full future integration more, connects it more strongly and causes them to build more neural pathways. In other words, become more comfortable with who they are now, having experienced this change, this positive change. Perhaps you feel drawn to take those few steps up that little hill. So you look at the horizon of opportunities now that you are feeling, and now you're feeding them back their responses, empowered and strong. And then you ask them, which opportunities are presenting themselves to you? So some clients feel so amazing and they just sit there and they dwell in it and they just keep quiet. Yeah. And if they do that, it's fine. It's not your job to say, come on, buddy, I need to know, stop feeling good. I just tell me. No. It's your job to just let them have maximum benefit from being associated into this aspect. Okay. And then sometimes they give you one response and sometimes you write like five responses. And the more you get here, the better, because they are actually really getting into it. And those neural networks are building very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I just tell a little story, Arno, about this? That just makes it so easy to see. So there was this weight client, and her waypoint, one of the waypoints was she actually was to be able to see her toes. You know, she couldn't see them, and that would thrill her. In that session, when I offered her to look at that horizon of opportunity, and I usually don't trust my clients to say what they see. If they want, I usually ask, is there anything you'd like to share? Sometimes if I really want to, I'm really curious, is there anything you'd like to share? But I never push them. And then she shared with me that she actually wants a sports car. She actually wants to own a sports car, but she never allowed herself to think that because she wouldn't fit in one. So she hadn't lost weight, or maybe it was the second session and she lost a minimal amount of weight. But that wasn't even the point. The point is that, I mean, which carrot do you think is dangling and has a stronger pull? To see your toenails or to buy a little sports car eventually? You see what we mean? So the increments are hugely important. And if you feel it's right to take that, that beyond the goal, to see them, have you been limiting yourself? Have you been or if you haven't been limiting yourself, have you ever allowed yourself to look at life when you are that person without the issue, what it has to offer you? I mean, I think that's not usually what we do, and it's so beneficial to the client. And this is also a time, if I may add that, Arno, I love to let my clients marinate in this moment. Give them time, be silent, give them the feeling that you're around and that you hold the space and whatever, by every now and then saying that's right or something like that. But the more they can play with that state, the stronger their new neural connections will become. And because what our good work in the brain is very feeble at this time. And they go outside in the normal world, they have their triggers, and it can be broken down again. So the more time you give them to really take all the juice out of this beautiful state, the stronger they become. So this is a very important part for us, the partial and full future integration, and then possibly the beyond the goal part. Thank you, Arno.
All good, loving it. And then the next part is just to update the anchor. So, you know, the positive emotion will peak at this stage. Often at this point with the partial and full future integration is often the highest levels of positive emotion they'll feel, because remember, we're building on everything. They've experienced all of that. Yes. So now, because of this intense peak in emotion, it's a very good opportunity to update that anchor. Now, please understand that you can anchor multiple positive emotions to the same anchor. We stack that anchor. In other words, we build on the same anchor. Remember the soup metaphor? We're just adding and adding and adding and just making that soup more and more delicious, right? More and more positive emotions being mixed in. Okay. So how do you update the anchor? So after the partial and full future integration and beyond the goal, if you use it, you say, perhaps these feelings are worthy of being added to that gift you gave yourself earlier. So it's a question, you get confirmation. Do you want to add these feelings so that they are available to you anytime when it's appropriate, beneficial, and wise? And you wait for a response. It's normally an idiom response. And then that's right. Go and add these feelings of empowered and feeling strong for you to benefit most, knowing that this can become stronger and stronger every time you use it to assist you, growth, and inspire you on so many levels. which means that you can add even more feel-good feelings to this potent and unique tool for you to use whenever appropriate. Okay, so it's just important for you then to say which there in there with the dots there, to say which anchor, you know, putting your thumb and forefinger together, or just as a reminder, because some of them might forget. You know, yeah, okay, and then you update that feeling. And also something I do need to add to the anchor, if they anchor like this, let me just bring it up here, right? Some clients will leave their hand like this.
Mhm.
So after they've anchored the first time, they will leave that hand. And I like to just put my finger in there and say, just release that for now. Because we are now busy with processes, you don't actually want to keep firing that anchor all throughout, right? So they must anchor again at the peak. You're adding to the peak. They mustn't be holding it the whole time. Okay. So this is just a little something important that I think I should mention.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's true, they do that. They do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss it, and then when I want to update the anchor, that they're clinging to it. They don't want to lose it because they find it so valuable. And and also, Arno, like in this example that we have been playing out here, we anchored blissful in the beginning, and now the two words that we have from partial and full future integration are empowered and strong. In my opinion, I don't think that empowerment and strong overrides blissful. I would say this is an addition, right?
That's good.
So as Arno was saying, you can stack it and you can repeat all three words, and it doesn't mean necessarily that the client will then the nervous system will trigger all three, but maybe the one that is most appropriate, because you keep on saying when it is appropriate, wise, and beneficial. These words are important. We used to say needed, and we quickly took that away because we don't like for us to have needs as such or be needy. Yeah, we replaced that with wise. So, and when you have updated the anchor and repeated the post-hypnotic suggestion just for the anchor, then you're coming to the point where you would, I think it's quite elegant to ask your client whether they feel that they're done, and which you can do in many ways, because you kind of preparing to close the session now. And I find it very satisfying when I ask my client, did you feel that you got what you came here for? Remember, we set a waypoint in the beginning, so they're not expecting to go all the way. We've set the waypoint. Or you can say, did you feel that you have received what you came here for? Do you feel that the session is done for now, or is there anything else that needs to be addressed? And of course, I only ask those questions if I personally feel that it's done, right? And then it's my client basically just confirms that. I find this quite satisfying when I have this confirmation from the client. And then you go ahead. This would be the next section, which we call the window of opportunity. And that's also when you give your post-hypnotic suggestion pertaining to the session, right? And so the window of opportunity, I don't know whether we need to explain that. There are various windows of opportunity. As a matter of fact, the first window of opportunity in our life when we were very young is usually where the problems are implemented or implanted or absorbed from us. Because window of opportunity kind of in hypnotic language means that the critical faculty is bypassed, completely bypassed. So when we're very young, our critical faculty hasn't developed. And when we're deep in trance, it's kind of sidestepped, at least to a degree. And when we say to the client, so now that our session is slowly coming to an end, something happens in the client. Maybe not in every client, but probably in most clients. whatever little hesitation or reservation they may still have had up until now, they will now relax, right? As a matter of fact, this is so profound that I had a few clients. They were just so not approachable, that I just gave them a script, told them the session is coming to an end, and then did the work. That's how powerful it is when you give them the idea that the session is coming to an end. So you have this window of opportunity where there is the least resistance possibly in the whole session time. You have the least resistance, and that is why this is the best place to repeat the post-hypnotic suggestion that you have given already, and to create a new post-hypnotic suggestion if you want to, and if you think that's necessary. So we have listed it here for you, so to make it really super easy. So from now on, you might surprise yourself how much easier it becomes to connect to this wonderful feeling of empowered and strong, guiding you to the best you choose to be on your path to, and here comes the outcome word that you elicited in the pre-talk, right? So a few words that you've written down, you will continue to repeat. Then we have here some examples for you. And now, being so relaxed and focused, isn't it good to know that from now on it will be easier and easier to feel, what did we have? Empowered and strong. Or from now on, you will find it easier and easier to respond to certain situations, more empowered and strong, so you can benefit more and more. And there's another one. From now on, whenever you desire, whenever it is appropriate, you can automatically take a few deep, long, calming breaths and notice how easily you feel empowered and strong. So it's your choice. You possibly have many other good ideas of post-hypnotic suggestions, but we know, and I mean, the previous speaker held up the Dave Ellman book, and one of the sections that are fun. I mean, it's quite amazing how young our modality actually is, and how much adventure went on. What was it in the 70s, really? And that Dave Ellman kind of stumbled upon how long-lasting a post-hypnotic suggestion is. You know the story where the two couples, they hypnotized the one wife and told her as a post-hypnotic suggestion, when we see each other again sitting down, that you go into a deep trance. They totally forgot about that and met years later in a different town in the middle of the street and decided to gonna have a lunch somewhere. The moment she sat down, she went into a deep trance. So they found this out almost by accident. You know, they were adventurous with these things. And I also found out that you can put a time limit to post-hypnotic suggestions. I did a few stage shows, and so we knew now of the longevity of post-hypnotic suggestions, that once they're fully accepted, they are fully accepted. But I was really curious of whether you can put a time limit to that. So we did the stage show, and we had this 15 young men on stage. And before we took them out of trance, I said, there's just one little thing that when this is over now and you go down and you sit down with your family to have a beautiful dinner, for the next 5 minutes, there's going to be all these fairies on the table, on the crockery, on the cutlery. They're going to be everywhere, and you have to protect them. Now, this was the most ridiculous suggestion for those guys. They were young men. They were around about 20. And to tell a 20-year-old man that they must protect fairies. So I used these stage shows to actually test certain things. So I didn't know how this would go. So they went down to the tables and I heard the conversation going on. No, don't, you can't drink from this glass. Can't you see there's a fairy sitting on there? And I picked up and I looked up and about 5 minutes later, all of these young men had disappeared. My heart dropped out of my body. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What has happened? I looked everywhere for them. I looked at the bar. I even looked in the bathroom. Nobody. And I found them finally outside having a cigarette. So the post-hypnotic suggestion, really, even for smokers, prevented them from going out and having a cigarette, because for 5 minutes they had to protect the fairies. So I went there, collected my heart and my courage, and I said, right, guys, how you feel? Oh, wonderful, because we always use the shows for empowering people. Feeling wonderful. Just don't understand the story about the fairies. And that's how we learned, or how I learned, that you can even put, so if the longevity is accepted, it's good to know that there's also a time cap for that. So I realized a lot with that. So this is very important. And when you have delivered your post-hypnotic suggestion, I believe that during your trance termination, I think it is good to compound them. Even if you feel like you're sounding a little bit like a parrot because you're repeating it again and again, I think maybe not for every client, but for most clients, it's a good thing to compound a post-hypnotic suggestion. What do you think, Arno? Do you do that too?
Absolutely. Compound it as much as possible,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, so it really sticks.
Yeah, it sounds a bit weird, but you know, if you say something just once, the client is still in this high and possibly still busy with their wonderful experience, and they might not have, or the subconscious might be busy with something. So I wouldn't rely on giving a post-hypnotic suggestion just once. You give it once in the window of opportunity, meaning you say it once you told them the session is over, but during the trance termination, which, as you know, is usually reversed from the deepening, so you got those 5 steps. It is nothing wrong repeating the post-hypnotic suggestion for the anchor and repeating the post-hypnotic suggestion pertaining to the session. In other words, repeating the words from partial and full future integration and possibly from beyond the goal. And then you have your client coming out of trance. At least that's what the client thinks. Because when you say, and one, wide awake, fully alert, how do you feel? That doesn't mean our client is out of trance necessarily. Actually, most probably he or she is not yet. And this is another window of opportunity, because now you have a client that thinks they're fully back in their normal conscious faculty, but that takes usually a few moments, doesn't it? You all observe that with your clients, don't you? But that time should not be left to waste. That is a beautiful time to say things or suggest things or ask things that reinforces all the good work that we have done during the session. You understand what I mean by that? And even if it's just, wow, did you surprise yourself how well you went into trance? Or did you surprise yourself with these wonderful observations that you did? Just suggesting something, also suggesting something like, for example, trance, which is very helpful then for the next session, because if they were questioning, oh, I can't be hypnotized, and you might even think it was a light trance, but they did go into trance, so it's not a lie. How beautiful you went into trance. They take that home, and when they come to the next session, they will not have that same belief that they are a difficult hypnotic subject, just as an example. And then, of course, the debriefing. Yeah. So what do you do with your clients, Arno, to debrief?
You know, by then I'm tired of them. It's time to go. I've had enough, you know. No,
No, yeah, in a first session, there probably isn't that much to discuss, although it can be really profound, even if it was just symptomatic.
yeah.
But in other sessions where you have done really deep subconscious emotional change work, the debriefing might be really necessary, because the client might not have somebody they can talk to. They might not have somebody they can talk to about what happened in trance with them. Yeah, other people might say they made this up or whatever. Sometimes they need to reflect on what happened, because they kind of almost need to convince themselves. How many clients did you have that said, "Oh, I didn't think I was in trance afterwards," or they say, I just made this up, when you do a regression with them, you know? So this kind of preparation kind of alleviates these things. You were going to tell about the debriefing from your side, Arno?
Yes, so I don't like to take too long, because, you know, somebody mentioned talkers earlier. If you get somebody unpacking and talking, they easily sit there another half an hour or so. So I just kind of calibrate quickly, like you say, give them a suggestion or two, or ask them something just to reinforce the benefits of the session. And then I check for misconceptions. I check for problems, because if they go home with an issue like you know, something simple like, you know, they say to you, I could hear all the sounds in the background.
Yeah.
And now, if you don't handle that, they will now drive home and they'll go in their head, I heard everything, which means it didn't work. And they'll keep giving themselves a suggestion until eventually all your work is undone, right? So the kind of you need to really observe carefully and handle anything that comes up and answer any questions. So if they say, I heard it sounds in the background, you say that's absolutely normal. Everybody does. You know, you did while you go so deeply into hypnosis, everything went in. So, you know, you just need to reinforce and make sure they don't leave with any ideas that they if they say, you know, I think I might have made that up. You know, something nice to say is, you could make up the story, but you can't make up the emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
That actually was a sentence I learned from Jeff Cohen in 2011. He taught me that, and it has stuck with me, because it is the ultimate truth. There's also, especially when they question trance. Has it happened to you guys that sometimes the client after the first session is questioning that was trance? To me, that is the only place. Only is always not a good word to choose. One of the places, probably the only place for rapid induction. What I love to do when the client comes out and they say, sure, was I hypnotized, or was that hypnosis? And I let them talk for a few seconds, and then I do a rapid induction on them, because what is the question from Jeff Cohen? No, it was a statement from Jeff Cohen. When they're questioned about whether they made up a story, Jeff Cohen said that you can make up the story, but you don't make up the emotions. And that was such a really, really cool sentence. So now I interrupted myself. So you do the rapid induction on them, and why that helps is because, especially in a first session, it takes quite some time from being in a normal state of consciousness to going into trance. So we do it so gradually that the client can't sometimes see the difference between this and that. So when you do a rapid induction and you achieve the same thing, which is very easy at this point because they're still kind of there, when you do it at that point, it is like day and night. And then they get it, then they understand it. So that's the only place sometimes in the well, it's actually almost before the debriefing, is just after the trance termination, where it really helps to sometimes use a rapid induction. Use it seldom, but it has convinced those disbelievers very often.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Arno, I think our timing is amazing.
Perfect, sure.
And we have not 20 minutes, but we have a few minutes for questions. So kind of this concludes what we prepared for you people. We really trust this was helpful. Maybe not in full, but maybe in bits and pieces, because I find you learn from everything. You learn from every client, you learn from every book. And even if it's just one little word that somehow makes the difference. So and if you have a question, then please fire away.
It's such a shy group.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see that.
Introverts.
Maybe we overwhelmed them.
It's not a
Brilliant.
question, but if I might share a short story with you in support of your question about the longevity of a post-hypnotic suggestion. I worked with a client to stop smoking, and during the intake interview, she told me that she had used hypnosis in the past, and it was successful, and she stopped smoking for about 10 years, and then started smoking again. And during our conversation, she recalled that after her previous session, the hypnotist said to her, "Now you may start smoking again in about 10 years."
Oh, wow.
And that statement certainly can be taken as it's a possibility or as giving permission.
Permissive.
You may start smoking. And
Yeah.
sure enough, after 10 years, she lit up again. It was very, very strange, but that's another illustration of your observation of the possibility of the longevity of the suggestions.
Yeah. Thank you, William. It just shows us that we cannot be too observant which words and how we put them together. It's a beautiful art and science that we are involved in. And my passion grows with every decade. It's quite unbelievable. And the fine-tuning of my understanding of words is and the appreciation I have for words and for language to help other people is growing all the time. It just shows you.
Sure. Okay.
So I think we can go to bed, Arno. It's midnight. It is.
That's right, isn't it?
Nobody has questions.
You were marvelous. You were spectacular.
Thank you.
Okay, Mitzi, I love you too.
Yeah. I second that.
That's great. It has been a lovely day, and your presentation was just remarkable. So we can't possibly thank you enough, but we'll try, and I hope to have you back again. You know, if it's too bad that it is so late, because I'd love to get you on like the virtual chapter or something some evening. But like I said, that we'll have to wait till you're traveling and you're somewhere where you'll be in a different time zone, because gosh, I don't know what I guess you're 6 hours.
6
Be
or
like-
7 hours, depending on your
Yeah.
daylight switch time.
Yeah. But it would be like 2:30 in the morning for you to begin, 2:30 until 4 or something.
Cool.
Michael, couldn't you and Karen just shift it just specifically so that we can have them on as guests? Work something out, shift
Yeah.
it so
We
that
swap it. You go at night, we go during the day.
Yeah.
Or maybe one can pre-record something There is limitations with the questions, obviously, but we can work on options. I would love to share more with you.
That'd be nice. Well, we'll talk about it some more. I really enjoyed the day. I really enjoyed the presentation, and Claudia and Arno have put it out here. Here's your last chance, or forever hold your peace. If you have any final questions for these fine presenters, now would be the time to get them in.
It's the integration process. It's the integration.
That's it, right? It's deep. Yeah.
Also, thank you for the handout too, because that handout is incredible.
Lovely.
Yeah, everything
Yeah.
is right there, and the way you walked us through it was just worth everything. So thank you both for that as a resource.
It's also really
Thanks,
inspiring.
Jackie.
I'm just starting out and just got certified last year and haven't really gotten into it yet, but it's really inspiring to hear how you've made your own out of all the different techniques. And it's just really freeing, because sometimes when you get certified, you're following one person's technique. So it's just really nice to hear from your experience how, like, what you see as important and how to emphasize that. So thank you.
Yeah. Try it out, Kathleen. Try it out. You will see. Let us know.
I will. I want to go to South Africa. Do you do?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In many aspects, one of the best places in the world.
Yes,
Great.
I'm on my way.
All
Quick
right.
question. Quick question. Do either of you include visual anchors for people when you're going ahead and giving them their new resourceful states? I often use, when you look in a mirror, you will find yourself feeling such and such a way. When you touch any handle of any kind, it will reinforce da 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 da. Do you use other things other than just the
Yeah.
okay sign?
Yeah.
Now we
Absolutely.
never know who to answer first. You can absolutely do that. I just like to use only things that are almost guaranteed to be with the client. And it's almost guaranteed if they come with a hand, they're going to have a hand tomorrow and next year. That's why, and it's the easiest. It's the easiest. If I stand in front of my boss and I need the courage to ask the question I want to ask my boss, and I now have to touch a handle or look in a mirror versus putting my hands in the pocket and press my two fingers together, I think the easiness of it just appeals to me.
Well, the reason I like them is because they compound, they stack and they compound those original suggestions. So they're kind of like add-ons.
Yeah, no, and you could possibly say either this or that, because they're all good.
Okay. All right. Well,
Thank you.
again, a lovely day. Thank you, everyone. We will be back here at 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So 10 o'clock my time, of course. So please adjust that for wherever you are. And thank you so much for spending such a lovely day with me. And we'll see you in the morning. And Arno and Claudia, feel free to come back and join us, if you've got time tomorrow as well. But but because it is so late, we do understand. So thanks again.
Thank you. Wishing you all well.
Yes.
Enjoy.
Good night, everyone.
Ciao. Good night.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.